The sound wasn't a crack, it was a wet, sharp thwack that cut through Vivaldi and clinking crystal. Every fork stopped, every conversation died. The string quartet's bows stuttered on the strings, discordant and shocked. Maya's head snapped to the side from the force, her cheek already blooming red. But she didn't cry, she didn't flinch. She slowly, so slowly the room seemed to hold its breath, turned her head back to face the woman who had struck her. Victoria Beaumont stood there, champagne glass in one hand, the other still raised from the slap. Her blood-red dress matched the fury in her eyes. The 10-carat engagement ring on her finger caught the light, throwing fractured rainbows across Maya's face like broken promises. 60 guests in diamonds and designer tuxedos sat frozen at their tables. Phones were already being raised. This was going to be everywhere by midnight. At the head table, Ethan Cross, billionaire, pharmaceutical genius, and the man about to make the biggest mistake of his life, finally looked up from his phone. His dark eyes narrowed not at his fiancée but at the waitress. Something about her face, the way she held herself, the defiant tilt of her chin. "You clumsy bitch," Victoria hissed loud enough for the front tables to hear. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Maya touched her burning cheek, felt the heat radiating from the handprint. She looked at Victoria, then at Ethan, then at the security camera mounted discreetly in the corner of the ornate ceiling. And then she smiled. "Actually, Miss Beaumont," Maya said, her voice clear and steady, carrying across the silent room like a bell, "I know exactly what I've done." She took a step forward, still holding her stinging cheek. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The restaurant manager Pierre came rushing over, his face pale and slick with sweat. Behind him, 2 security guards hovered uncertainly. Nobody touched the guests at Oralia, nobody. "Miss, please," Pierre whispered urgently, grabbing Maya's arm. "You need to leave, now." Maya didn't move. Her eyes were locked on Victoria, who was breathing hard, her perfect facade cracking at the edges. "Get her out," Victoria commanded, her voice shaking. "Fire her, I want her arrested for ruining my dress." "Your dress?" Maya's voice was dangerously quiet. "Is that what this is about?" Ethan stood slowly, his tall frame unfolding from the chair. For the first time all evening, he looked fully present. "Victoria, you hit her. She spilled wine on me." Victoria's voice rose, cracking. "She's incompetent." I didn't spill anything," Maya said, her voice cutting through Victoria's hysteria like a scalpel. "But you did just assault me, in front of 60 witnesses, in front of multiple cameras." She turned to face the room, addressing the frozen guests. "I hope at least one of you got that in 4K. A woman at table 3 lowered her phone guiltily. A man at table 7 kept recording. Charles Beaumont, Victoria's father, rose from his seat. He was silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the kind of face that belonged on currency. "Old money, old power." "Young lady," he said, his voice dripping with paternal authority, "you've had a difficult evening. I'm sure this was all a misunderstanding. Victoria, apologized to the girl, will compensate her for her trouble." He pulled out a money clip, began counting hundreds. Maya laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a bitter one. It was the laugh of someone who'd been waiting 3 years for this moment. "You think this is about money, Mr. Beaumont?" She turned to Pierre, who was still gripping her arm. "You can let go now, I'm not going anywhere." "Miss, please," Pierre begged. "You're fired, you have to leave." "I'm pressing charges," Maya said simply. "Assault, battery, and I'm going to need everyone here to stay as witnesses." The murmur that rippled through the room was like wind through wheat. Victoria's mother, Patricia Beaumont, spoke for the first time. Her voice was ice cold and precise. "Ethan, darling, make this go away, write her a check, whatever she wants." But Ethan was staring at Maya with an expression somewhere between confusion and recognition. "She said she's pressing charges, that's her right." Victoria's head whipped toward him. "Are you defending her, over me, on our engagement night?" "I'm defending someone who was just assaulted," Ethan said quietly. "There's a difference." Maya felt something crack in her chest. This was the man she remembered. The one who'd existed before the billions, before the board meetings, before Victoria Beaumont had wrapped herself around him like poison ivy. "Mr. Cross," Maya said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening at the edges. "Do you remember the Hippocratic Oath?" The room went silent. Ethan's face went white. "What did you say?" "First, do no harm," Maya continued, her eyes locked on his. 47 patients, Mr. Cross. That's how many people died from Hartsure, the miracle cardiac drug developed by Beaumont Pharmaceuticals. The room exploded into whispers. Charles Beaumont's face turned purple. That is slander. Security, get her out of here now. Is it slander? Maya reached into her apron pocket. Because I have medical records, autopsy reports. FDA complaints that mysteriously vanished from the public database. She held up a small USB drive. And I have the complete research files of Dr. Robert Chen, the cardiac researcher who tried to expose you. The man your family destroyed. Ethan took a step forward, his face stricken. Robert Chen, the researcher who died 3 years ago? Maya met his eyes. Even with the colored contacts, even with her dyed hair and the 30 pounds she'd lost, she saw the moment recognition crashed over him like a wave. Maya, his voice broke on her name. The morning had started like every other morning for the past 6 months. Maya Chen, no, Maya Tours, according to her fake ID and social security card, had arrived at Orlaya at 2 p.m. for the evening shift. The restaurant perched on the 52nd floor of the Celestial Tower, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city below. Getting a reservation required either a 6-month wait or a net worth that didn't bother with waiting. Pierre had gathered the staff in the prep kitchen. Tonight is the Cross Beaumont engagement party, table 1, 60 guests, all of them worth more than this building. I want perfection. I want invisible service. I want them to leave here thinking they've dined with angels. Maya had stood in the back, her heart hammering. 6 months of waiting tables, of perfecting her disguise, of watching and documenting. Tonight was the night. She'd volunteered for table 1. Pierre had been surprised. Maya usually preferred the quieter tables, the ones where she could blend into the background. But tonight was different. In the staff bathroom, Maya had checked her hidden recording device, a pen tucked into her apron pocket with a pinhole camera. She'd reviewed the notes on her phone one last time, her father's research condensed into bullet points and damning evidence. Then she'd looked at herself in the mirror. The black hair dye had grown out slightly at the roots, showing hints of her natural auburn. The brown contacts hid her distinctive green eyes. The weight loss made her face gaunt, angular, unrecognizable. 3 years ago, she'd been Dr. Maya Chen, a promising cardiac surgeon at Mass General. Engaged to Ethan Cross, then a struggling biotech entrepreneur working out of a rented lab space. They'd met at a medical conference. He'd been presenting his drug delivery system, a revolutionary way to target medication directly to diseased tissue, bypassing healthy cells. She'd been in the audience, transfixed. After his presentation, she'd approached him. That's brilliant, but you're thinking too small. He'd looked offended. Too small? You're focused on cancer treatment, but cardiac medicine, that's where this could save millions, let me show you. They'd gone to a coffee shop. She'd covered napkins in equations and diagrams, showing him how his system could revolutionize heart disease treatment. He'd stared at her like she was the sun. 3 months later, they were inseparable. 6 months after that, he'd proposed in that same coffee shop, using the napkin with her equations as a placemat under the ring. And then his company had exploded overnight. A venture capital firm had invested $200 million. Suddenly, Ethan was on magazine covers giving keynote speeches, surrounded by lawyers and advisors and handlers. He'd moved into a penthouse, started flying private. Maya had watched him change, slowly at first, then all at once. The late-night pizza dinners became formal benefits. The walks in the park became car services. The easy conversations became guarded small talk. And then her father had called her, frantic and terrified. Dr. Robert Chen had been a researcher at Columbia studying cardiac drugs. He discovered something horrifying. Hartsure, a blockbuster medication from Beaumont Pharmaceuticals, was killing people. The drug was supposed to regulate heart rhythm, but in certain genetic profiles, it caused catastrophic heart failure. 47 deaths so far, hundreds more potential victims. He tried to publish his findings. The journal had rejected them. He'd contacted the FDA. His complaint had disappeared. He'd reached out to colleagues. They'd stopped returning his calls. Then the professional hit pieces had started. Anonymous allegations of research fraud, whispers about fabricated data. His tenure was reviewed. His grants were pulled. His reputation was systematically destroyed. Maya, he'd told her on the phone, his voice shaking, They're going to kill me. Not physically, they'll kill my career, my credibility, everything I've built. I need you to keep these files safe. If anything happens to me..." 2 weeks later, he was dead, suicide according to the police report. He'd driven his car off a cliff on a winding mountain road, but Maya had seen the note. It wasn't his handwriting. And her father had been afraid of heights. He'd never driven mountain roads if he could avoid them. She'd started investigating, and she'd found the connection. Beaumont Pharmaceuticals was in financial trouble. Hartshire was their lifeline, generating $3 billion in annual revenue. They couldn't afford a scandal, and they had powerful friends, lawyers, politicians, people who could make problems disappear. Maya had realized she had two choices: go public with her father's research and end up just as dead, or disappear and wait for the right moment. She'd chosen option 2. She'd faked her own car accident, leaving her vehicle at the bottom of a ravine with just enough blood to suggest she hadn't survived. She'd emptied her bank accounts, burned her identification, and vanished. For 3 years, she'd worked minimum wage jobs under fake names: bartender, hotel maid, coffee shop barista, invisible labor, the kind of work where nobody looked at your face. And she'd watched Ethan from a distance. Watched his company grow, watched him become a billionaire, watched him start dating Victoria Beaumont. That's when she'd understood the Beaumonts weren't just trying to silence her father. They were going after Ethan's technology, the drug delivery system that could revolutionize medicine. If they controlled it, they could use it to make Hartshire more effective, more profitable, and bury the death toll under improved survival rates. The engagement had been announced 3 months ago. Maya had immediately applied to work at Oralia, Victoria's favorite restaurant. She'd spent 6 months documenting conversations, photographing documents left carelessly on tables, befriending the staff. And tonight, the merger papers were going to be signed. Tomorrow morning, Beaumont Pharmaceuticals would acquire a controlling interest in Cross Biotech. Victoria would have access to everything: patents, research, financial records. Maya couldn't let that happen. She tucked her father's USB drive into the hidden pocket of her apron, checked her recording device one last time, and stepped onto the floor. "Tonight," she'd whispered to her reflection, "I burn it all down." "Maya," Ethan's voice cracked on her name, and the restaurant seemed to tilt on its axis. Maya removed her brown contact lenses, revealing her natural green eyes. Even after 3 years, even through the weight loss and dyed hair, her eyes were unmistakable. "Hello, Ethan?" The USB drive felt heavy in her hand, weighted with 3 years of evidence and her father's last desperate research. Victoria was staring between them, her face cycling through confusion, realization, and pure rage. "You know this woman, this waitress?" "She's not a waitress," Ethan said, his voice hollow. "She's Dr. Maya Chen." We were engaged," Maya finished quietly. 4 years ago, before you became a billionaire, before the Beaumonts decided you were worth acquiring." The room erupted in gasps and frantic whispers. Phones were raised, recording everything. "This is insane," Victoria said, but her voice wavered. "Ethan, she's clearly obsessed with you. This is stalking, is it?" Maya's voice was cold. "Or am I trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life?" She turned to address the room, her voice ringing clear. 3 years ago, my father, Dr. Robert Chen, discovered that Beaumont Pharmaceuticals was selling a cardiac drug that killed people. Not sometimes, not rarely, systematically. 47 confirmed deaths, hundreds more suspected. Charles Beaumont stood, his face purple with rage. "This is slander. Your father was a fraud. He falsified data, did he?" Maya held up the USB drive. "Because I have his complete research files, including the metadata showing that all of the evidence of his fraud was created 2 weeks after his death." She pulled out her phone, swiped to a folder of screenshots. Bank transfers from Beaumont Pharmaceuticals to Reputation Dynamics, a firm that specializes in destroying people's careers. Emails between your legal team and journalists, feeding them fake stories about my father. Security footage that proves my father's car was tampered with the night before his accident. The room was silent except for the soft clicking of phone cameras. Ethan looked like he might be sick. "Maya, why didn't you come to me 3 years ago when this happened?" Maya met his eyes, and for the first time her composure cracked. "Because you wouldn't have believed me. You were too busy becoming someone I didn't recognize." surrounded by lawyers and advisors and people telling you how brilliant you were, and then you started dating her. She gestured at Victoria. I watched you fall in love with the daughter of the people who killed my father. I watched you plan a wedding with the family that destroyed mine, and I realized you weren't the man I'd fallen in love with anymore. That's not fair, Ethan said, his voice breaking. Isn't it? When did you last look at your company's financial records? Really look at them, because I have. For 6 months, I've been collecting evidence. And tomorrow, when you sign those merger papers, you're not just marrying Victoria, you're giving the Beaumonts control of your drug delivery system. She swiped through more files on her phone. The Singapore deal you signed 3 months ago, that generic pharmaceutical distributor is a shell company, owned by Beaumont Pharmaceuticals. They've already been manufacturing Hartsure with your delivery technology. More efficient. More deadly, and it ships to 3 countries in 8 days. Ethan's face went from white to gray. No, that's not. I read every page. Did you? Maya's voice was gentle now, almost pitying. Or did you trust the people around you to handle the details? Victoria laughed, a brittle, desperate sound. This is ridiculous, Ethan. She's making this up. She's clearly mentally ill. But Patricia Beaumont, who'd been silent until now, stood smoothly. Her face was utterly calm. Ethan, darling, she said, her voice like honey laced with arsenic. Obviously this woman is disturbed. We should call security and have her removed. Then we can discuss this privately. Privately? Maya laughed. Like you discussed it with my father privately before you destroyed him? She turned to face Patricia directly. You're the smart one, aren't you? Charles is the face, the glad-hander, the public persona. Victoria is the honey trap, beautiful and charming and perfect for landing a lonely billionaire. But you're the architect. Patricia's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't you? Maya pulled out another document. This is an email from your personal account to your corporate counsel. Subject line. The Chen problem, dated 2 weeks before my father died. You want me to read it aloud? That's privileged communication, Patricia said sharply. Not when it's evidence of murder, Maya replied. The room exploded into chaos. Guests were standing, security was moving in, Pierre looked like he was about to have a heart attack. And then David Park, the sommelier who'd been quietly refilling glasses throughout the evening, stepped forward and pulled off his burgundy vest. Actually, he said, pulling a press badge from his pocket, I'm a journalist with the Boston Globe. I've been investigating Beaumont Pharmaceuticals for 2 years, and I've been recording everything tonight. He held up his phone, a red recording light blinking steadily. This entire confession, it's being live-streamed to my editor, and about 2 million people are watching right now. The room went utterly, completely silent. Patricia Beaumont's perfect composure finally cracked. Her face twisted with rage, and she reached into her clutch purse and pulled out a small handgun. Screaming erupted across the restaurant. Guests dove under tables, security guards reached for weapons, and Ethan lunged forward. Everyone stay exactly where you are, Patricia commanded, her voice ringing with authority. She grabbed Maya's arm, pressing the gun against her temple. Or I'll decorate these beautiful windows with her brain. Maya went very still. She'd planned for many contingencies. Being held hostage by a socialite with a designer handbag gun had not been one of them. Mom, Victoria's voice was high and panicked. What are you doing? Saving this family, Patricia snapped. Something you failed to do by slapping this little bitch instead of keeping your composure. Charles looked stunned. Patricia, put the gun down. This isn't we can fix this. Fix this? Patricia laughed bitterly. She's been live streaming our confession to 2 million people. There's no fixing this. Security guards had their weapons drawn, but nobody dared move. Patricia had the gun pressed so tightly to Maya's temple that any shot risked hitting both of them. Here's what's going to happen, Patricia said, her voice eerily calm now. Everyone is going to put their phones down, all footage from tonight gets deleted, and this little revenge fantasy ends quietly. You can't delete a live stream, David said. It's already out there. Then we'll call it deepfake, AI-generated slander. Our lawyers will bury you in lawsuits until you're living in a cardboard box. Maya felt the cold metal against her skin and realized something. Patricia was terrified. Desperate people made mistakes. You can't shoot me, Maya said quietly. Can't I? Patricia's finger moved toward the trigger. You can. But then you're a murderer on camera. Right now you might beat this in court. Good lawyers, sympathetic jury, confused evidence. But murder, that's different. Shut up, Patricia hissed. How much debt is the family really in? Maya asked, her voice conversational despite the gun. I saw the bankruptcy filings you sealed. 400 million, wasn't it? That's why you need Ethan's company, not just to cover up Hartshore. You need the cash infusion. Victoria made a choking sound. 400 million? Your father's gambling problem, Maya continued, her eyes on Ethan. Your mother's art collection investments that turned out to be forgeries. The real estate portfolio that collapsed. The Beaumont name is all that's left, and even that's mortgaged. I said shut up. Patricia's hand was shaking now. Ethan had been frozen, but now he moved slowly forward, his hands raised. Patricia, let her go. We can talk about this. Talk? Patricia laughed. You want to talk? Fine, here's the truth. Your precious drug delivery system, we've been testing it for 6 months, on people who don't know their test subjects. Prison populations, nursing homes, psychiatric facilities, places where deaths don't raise questions. The horror on Ethan's face was complete. We've perfected it, Patricia continued, and in 8 days it launches globally. Government contracts worth $50 billion, enough to save our family and make us richer than you ever dreamed. You're killing people, Ethan whispered. We're making progress, Patricia corrected. Medicine requires sacrifice. Your mother understood that. She died in a clinical trial, didn't she? For the greater good? Maya felt Ethan's grief like a physical blow. She knew about his mother, knew that her death had driven him to build his company to try to save others. Don't you dare, Ethan said, his voice low and dangerous, speak about my mother. Or what? Patricia pressed the gun harder against Maya's temple. You'll lecture me, you'll cancel the wedding, go ahead, but she dies first. Maya closed her eyes. She'd come so far, gathered so much evidence, planned so carefully, and it was going to end with a bullet in a fancy restaurant. Then Ethan's voice rang out, clear and steady. The USB drive. It's not in her pocket anymore. Patricia's head whipped around. What? Maya wouldn't carry the only copy of evidence to a confrontation, Ethan said, and Maya heard the love in his voice, the intimate knowledge of how her mind worked. She's too smart for that. She hid it somewhere in this restaurant. He was stalling, buying time for security, for police, for something. First, do no harm, Ethan said, looking at Maya. That's what you said earlier, the Hippocratic Oath. Maya's breath caught. He'd understood. Years ago, before everything fell apart, they'd played a game. She'd hide his birthday presents and make him solve riddles to find them. Medical riddles, equations, word puzzles. First, do no harm, Ethan repeated, and Maya saw his eyes flick to the wall behind her. The defibrillator. Every restaurant in the city was required to have one after a councilman had died of cardiac arrest at a charity dinner. Orlia's was mounted on the wall near the kitchen entrance, in a glass case marked with a medical cross. The medical equipment, Ethan said slowly, working it out. She hid it in the medical equipment. He started walking toward the defibrillator. Stop, Patricia commanded. Or what? Ethan kept moving. You'll shoot her, then you've got nothing. Shoot me, same problem. Your only leverage is that drive, and I'm about to find it. He reached the defibrillator case, smashed the glass with his elbow, and pulled out the device. Taped to the back was the USB drive. Got it, he said, holding it up. Patricia's face twisted with rage, and in that moment of distraction, Maya moved. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of minimum wage jobs had taught her one thing: how to fight. She'd taken self-defense classes, practiced in her tiny apartment, prepared for this moment. She dropped her weight, drove her elbow back into Patricia's stomach, and twisted away from the gun. The weapon went off, a deafening crack, and the bullet shattered one of the floor-to-ceiling windows. Chaos erupted. David threw a wine bottle, striking Patricia's hand. The gun clattered across the marble floor. Security rushed forward, tackling Patricia to the ground. Charles tried to run for the elevator and was brought down by 2 waiters. Victoria stood frozen in her blood-red dress, watching her entire world collapse. And Maya found herself in Ethan's arms, both of them shaking, both of them alive. You solved it, she whispered. I'll always solve your riddles, he said, and kissed her forehead. But Victoria's voice cut through the moment, broken and desperate. You don't understand. None of you understand. It's too late. Everyone turned to look at her. The shipment, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. It already left the manufacturing facility 3 days ago. It's in international waters. You can't stop it now. Maya felt her blood turn to ice. Where's it going? Victoria met her eyes and Maya saw something unexpected there. Regret, everywhere. Ethan's private car screamed through the city streets, running red lights with police escort clearing the way ahead. In the back seat, Maya had her laptop open, frantically searching shipping manifests and customs databases. David Park was in the front passenger seat, phone pressed to his ear, coordinating with his editor at the Globe. Get the story out now, every outlet. We need public pressure on the FDA, customs, and international health organizations. 3 shipments, Maya said, her voice tight. Singapore, Lagos, and Sao Paulo. Combined population reach of 200 million people, and Hartshire with Ethan's delivery system is 10 times more potent than the original. Can you access my company's servers remotely? Ethan asked. He was driving, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Your access codes were revoked, Maya said, fingers flying across the keyboard. The Beaumonts moved fast. They've locked you out of your own company. Then we go there in person. There's security, armed guards. We can't just... It's my building, Ethan said grimly. I know every entry point, every security protocol, every weakness. I designed them. They pulled up to Cross Biotech headquarters, a gleaming 40-story tower of steel and glass. The building was dark except for the top floor where lights blazed. Someone's still there, David said. They left the car running and approached the main entrance. Ethan's keycard didn't work. His biometric scan was rejected. Every access point was locked. They changed everything, he whispered, pressing his hand against the glass door like he could will it open. Maya was already moving, circling the building. Loading dock. There's always a loading dock. They found it on the east side, a rolling metal door that led to the building's service entrance. Ethan pulled out his phone, accessed an app, and the door began to rise with a mechanical whir. Emergency protocol, he explained. I built a backdoor into every system, in case I ever got locked out by a hostile board. They slipped inside into a concrete corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. The service elevator was ancient and slow, groaning its way up 40 floors while Maya pulled up schematics on her laptop. Server room is on 38, she said, but we need the executive terminal on 40. That's the only system with full access to international shipping protocols. The elevator opened on floor 40 into darkness. Ethan led them through the shadows, navigating by memory through corridors he'd walked 1,000 times. They reached his office, the CEO's suite, all glass walls and minimalist furniture. His computer was still logged in. The Beaumonts had been arrogant, certain he'd never get this far. Maya slid into his chair and plugged in the USB drive. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, opening files, cross-referencing databases, building the case. The shipments left from a facility in Singapore, she said, but they have to clear customs at destination ports. If we can flag them as hazardous materials, we need evidence, David said. Something that will make customs officials hold the shipment. Maya opened her father's research files, pulling up autopsy reports, patient records, clinical data showing the deadly interaction between Hartshire and certain genetic markers. This won't be enough, she said, despair creeping into her voice. It'll take days to verify and the shipments will clear customs before then. Ethan leaned over her shoulder looking at the screen. What if we don't try to prove it's dangerous? What if we prove it's fake? What? Counterfeit medication, that's a customs violation. Immediate seizure, no questions asked. His mind was racing now, seeing the solution. The Beaumonts were using my delivery technology without proper licensing, which means the drug formulation doesn't match the registered patents. Technically, it's counterfeit. Maya stared at him, then started typing frantically. She pulled up patent registrations, compared them to the shipping manifests, highlighted the discrepancies. You're right, the molecular structure is different, close enough to fool consumers but different enough to trigger counterfeit protocols. She sent the files to customs offices in Singapore, Lagos, and Sao Paulo, flagging the shipments as potential counterfeit medications requiring immediate seizure and testing. Then she sent copies to the FDA, the WHO, Interpol, and every regulatory agency she could find. Done, she breathed. But we won't know if they stop it in time. The office lights blazed on, blinding them impressive. Patricia Beaumont stood in the doorway, flanked by private security guards. She was no longer the composed socialite from the restaurant. Her hair was disheveled, her designer dress torn. But she had a tablet in her hand and a smile on her face. You really thought it would be that easy? She asked. A few emails to customs officials. You're supposed to be under arrest, David said. Bail is a wonderful thing when you have friends in high places. She tapped her tablet. And I have very good friends. The kind who can make customs officials look the other way. The kind who can delete emails before they're ever read. Maya's heart sank. They'd been so close. But I'll admit, Patricia continued, you've been more trouble than you're worth, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete every file on that USB drive. You're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and in exchange, I'll let you live. You can't kill us, Ethan said. David's been live-streaming this entire thing. Patricia laughed. Has he? She nodded to one of her guards who held up David's phone. Signal jammers are wonderful technology. The stream cut out 20 minutes ago. Right now, it's just us. Maya's mind raced. They'd come so far, risked everything, and now. Then she noticed something on Ethan's computer screen. A notification blinking in the corner. Emergency protocol activated. Building lockdown initiated. She glanced at Ethan. He'd seen it too, a slight nod. You're right, Maya said, standing slowly. We can't win, not against your lawyers, your money, your connections. She ejected the USB drive from the computer. Here, take it, it's over. She held out the drive. Patricia stepped forward, reaching for it. And every door in the office slammed shut. Steel security shutters dropped over the windows. The room plunged into red emergency lighting. What did you do? Patricia screamed. Emergency lockdown, Ethan said calmly. Biohazard protocol, seals every room independently, and triggers automatic alerts to emergency services, news outlets, and social media, with our current location. This entire building is now broadcasting our position, Maya added. Police, press, federal agents, they'll all be here in minutes. Patricia's face twisted with rage. She lunged for Maya, but Ethan stepped between them. The security guards moved forward, but David tackled one, and Maya grabbed a desk lamp and smashed it into the other guard's face. Chaos erupted in the sealed office, but Maya wasn't focused on the fight. She was focused on the computer screen where she'd pulled up one final file, the complete evidence package. 3 years of research, 6 months of surveillance, Patricia's confession from the restaurant, everything. With one keystroke, she uploaded it to a cloud server. With another keystroke, she sent the link to every major news outlet, every regulatory agency, every medical journal, and every social media platform she could access. The story was out, unstoppable, viral. By the time the police breached the lockdown 15 minutes later, the Beaumont scandal was trending worldwide. The shipments had been seized in all 3 countries. The FDA had issued emergency recalls. The stock market had suspended trading on Beaumont Pharmaceuticals. And Patricia Beaumont, aristocrat and murderer, was being led away in handcuffs, screaming about lawyers and rights and injustice. Victoria sat alone in a corner of the office, staring at nothing, her engagement ring catching the emergency lights. The courtroom was packed with victims, families, journalists, and medical professionals. Maya sat in the front row, wearing her white coat for the first time in 3 years. Dr. Maya Chen, cardiac surgeon, reinstated. The jury had deliberated for 3 days. Charles Beaumont, guilty on all counts. 47 years. Patricia Beaumont, guilty on all counts, life without parole. Victoria Beaumont, guilty on conspiracy charges, but the jury had shown mercy. 10 years, eligible for parole in 5. She'd cooperated fully, testified against her parents, helped investigators unravel the entire conspiracy. As Victoria was led away, she looked at Maya one last time. No hatred, no blame. Just exhaustion and something that might have been gratitude. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Dr. Chen, how does it feel to get justice for your father? Will you be returning to surgery? What's next for you and Ethan Cross? Maya ignored them all and walked to where Ethan was waiting by his car. Not the Tesla or the Bentley, his old Honda Civic from before the billions, the one he'd never sold. They drove to a small diner on the edge of town. Not Orlaya, never Orlaya again. somewhere with vinyl booths and bottomless coffee and menus sticky with syrup. So, Ethan said, sliding into the booth across from her. Dr. Chen, head of cardiac surgery at Mass General. That's quite a promotion. And you, Maya replied, stepping down as CEO to run the research division. That's quite a demotion. Not a demotion, a realignment. He reached across the table, took her hand. I built this company to save lives. Somewhere along the way I forgot that, you reminded me. The waitress brought coffee. Not a Michelin-starred sommelier, just a tired woman in a stained apron who called them hun and didn't recognize either of them. It was perfect. The families are getting settlements, Ethan said, every single one, whatever they need. And the drug delivery system. Open-sourced, free to any researcher, any hospital, anyone who wants to use it to actually help people. He smiled. Turns out I don't need to be a billionaire, just a scientist who gives a damn. Maya felt something unlock in her chest. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the one in the tuxedo at the fancy restaurant, but the one who'd worked 20-hour days in a rented lab because he believed he could change the world. So, Ethan said, pulling a small box from his pocket. I have a question. Maya's breath caught. 4 years ago I proposed in a coffee shop. It was impulsive and messy and probably too soon, but it felt right. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band. No diamonds, no ostentation. Just metal and meaning. This time I'm doing it right. Maya Chen, will you marry me? Not the billionaire version, not the guy with the penthouse and the board meetings, just me, the scientist, the man who loves you. The man who will spend every day trying to be worthy of you. Maya looked at the ring, then at him, then around the diner with its cracked vinyl and fluorescent lights. Can I see the prenup first? She asked. Ethan blinked, confused. What? I'm joking, she laughed, and it felt like breathing after holding her breath for 3 years. Yes, Ethan, yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. The waitress came by with their order, pancakes and eggs, nothing fancy, nothing pretentious, and saw the ring. Congratulations, hun, she said with a genuine smile. You two look happy. And they were. Later, walking out to the parking lot, Maya's phone buzzed. An email from the Massachusetts Medical Board. Dr. Chen, we're pleased to inform you that your request to establish the Robert Chen Memorial Research Fund has been approved. 47 families would receive scholarships in her father's name. 47 young doctors would study cardiac medicine. 47 lives would carry forward his legacy. He'd be proud of you, Ethan said, reading over her shoulder. He'd be proud of us, Maya corrected. They stood there in the parking lot of a diner, no cameras, no witnesses, no one recording or judging or watching. Just two people who'd fought through hell and come out the other side. Ethan pulled her close. No more disguises. No more disguises, Maya agreed. No more hiding, no more ghosts. Just us. Just us. And somewhere in the city, in a fancy restaurant on the 52nd floor, someone else was serving the ultra-wealthy, invisible, and unnoticed. But tonight, Maya Chen wasn't thinking about Oralia or waitress uniforms or the sound of a slap echoing through Crystal and Vivaldi. She was thinking about the future, about the patients she'd save, about the research her father's fund would support, about the man she loved, finally free from the trap that had almost destroyed them both. Some slaps, she thought, really do change everything. But it's what you do after the slap that matters. If you loved this story of justice, revenge, and redemption, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the powerless are more powerful than they seem. And subscribe for more stories where the underdog doesn't just win, they change the world. What would you have done in Maya's position? Let me know in the comments below.